The other candidates, Abdullah, on the face of it, there is a question mark. The other two candidates, one is, of course, Zalmai Rasool, and the second one is Ashraf
Ghani Ahmad Zai.
Ashraf Ghani Ahmad Zai. What is your take on that?
I think Karzai wants Rasool to be the president and the vice president to be the representative Abdullah.
Is that your understanding?
So this is what they are trying to work out. And secondly, from the long-term perspective, you think is it good for Afghanistan's stability that somebody like Abdullah becomes the president? Because the neighbors across our borders, I don't think they will be very happy. They are not reconciled to the idea of Abdullah becoming president, and they have a lot of cards to play. But I was talking to some senior diplomats.
What cards do they have to play? What cards?
No, let me just finish.
Yeah.
The latest Pakistani view, from what I heard, is that they are not opposed to a coalition government. They say just a pure Taliban government in Kabul is counterproductive from their point of view. So they want a government which is all-inclusive, which will also include sections of the Taliban. This is the kind of government they would like to see in Kabul.
Do you go along with that?
I find this proposition to be flawed ab initio. The reason is that this presumes that the Taliban are capable of being members of a coalition. To my mind, they are not. The Taliban are apart from being a theological organization and following a brand of Islam, a madhab which is quite contrary to the traditional madhabs of Afghanistan, they are very ideological. And I don't think that they are capable, quite to my mind,
given what you're saying,
yes,
and one agrees with that, what was that Qatar process then all about?
It was all about gaining international legitimacy.
For
the Taliban. The Pakistanis,
But the authors of the Qatar process were the Americans.
No, look, as far as the Americans are concerned, they have only one interest, Saeed, which is to cut their losses and go away. I think their primary strategic interest in Afghanistan was to ensure that Afghanistan should never become a base for a 9/11-like attack ever again.
Right.
I personally feel that they think that they've achieved that. With Osama's killing, etc. I think they've achieved that. That is what they think. Now, they had other strategic interests, subsidiary strategic interests, and they seem to have failed entirely in all that.
What were those? Would you guess what Vivek is saying? There were subsidiary strategic interests. Which one might those be?
No, I think those interests are still very much there for America. I don't think they are going to militarily abandon Afghanistan, abandon their big bases in Afghanistan, because that gives them proximity vis-a-vis Iran. Iran is the only country in the region which is opposed to the continuing presence of American military in Afghanistan. While even China has supported the continuing presence of the American military. So I don't think the American military visualizes the a complete pullout from Afghanistan. I think at any given point of time there will be at least 25 to 30,000 American troops positioned in Afghanistan. Well, things can change if there is a deal done with Iran, on a nuclear deal done with Iran, and the Americans need Iran's cooperation for withdrawing from Afghanistan in a orderly manner.
I have a feeling if you cross those wires, you will end up confusing ourselves, because the track with Iranians is on its own. I don't think they are going to allow that to interfere with their strategy on Afghanistan, even though, having said that, the Iranians do want the Americans to pack up and go.
No, the Iranians obviously want this. They've been wanting this for a long time. And I do agree that the Americans want to retain a presence, a military presence in Afghanistan. Now, I don't know if the numbers will reach 25 to 30,000 American boys on the ground, but I do think that perhaps about
6 bases,
9 bases they're talking about. 10 to 15,000 seems to be a more reasonable figure to my mind, as far as Americans are concerned. But look, there were other interests that they had. I mean, all this interest of opening up the region, an interest in...
We'll come to that. Tell me, the forces agreement, the agreement that Karzai has been alleged to be holding up, which the Americans want, it will ultimately have to be signed, won't it?
Yeah, of course it will. I think Karzai was, I hate to use the word, was extremely irresponsible not to sign that.
So...
Because I'll give you my ideas very simply.
What do you say, John? Is it being signed?
No.
Why did Karzai hold it up for so long?
I think he doesn't want, he wants to go down in the history books as the guy who stood up to the Americans after being perceived as being their puppet for so long.
But he wants to... sorry?
Yeah, he wants to, he doesn't want to be just a...
But he wants to handpick his successor on whom this podium may be...
Yes, that he has made clear, yes.
Yeah. Look, the elections have been held.
Right.
The drift, if one sees the media, one is getting is that his handpicked successor is not in the frame at all. Zalmay is not there.
Right.
Zalmay
Rasool is not in the frame.
That is what the media reports. That is
what I get from the American newspapers.
From the American newspapers, also from the kind of impression that one has.
Therefore, Ashraf Ghani is in.
Therefore, most likely, as of today, if I was a betting man, I would say that it will go to a second round.
Yes.
And again, if I was a betting man, in the second round, I think Ashraf Ghani has an advantage. I mean, one has to see.
Over Zalmay?
No, over Abdullah. If Zalmay is not in the frame, the other man, the runoff will be between Ashraf Ghani and Abdullah.
Right.
Now, earlier it was believed that Abdullah will emerge as the number one.
Right.
Again, if press reports are to be believed, they are neck to neck. And it's quite possible that Ashraf may emerge as number one, but not with 50% of the vote, which is required under the Afghan constitution. Otherwise, there is a runoff.
To obviate a runoff.
How to obviate a runoff? 50% plus one.
Right.
Now, so as far as Karzai is concerned, I mean, the point that you made that he wants the odium to vest with the successor. I think with Karzai, he didn't realize that since Afghanistan was going to pass through this very difficult transitional phase, he needed to reduce the uncertainties.
Right.
And certainly one of the things required to reduce the uncertainty is to sign the BSA. He had called a lawyer jirga, and the lawyer jirga instructed him to sign it, and he said no. So all the other candidates have said they'll sign it. Because that is what the overwhelming opinion in Afghanistan wants.
Is Ashraf Ghani, he is a former World Bank man, is that, we are having plenty of World Bank and former American university graduates like Saakashvili in Georgia and that lady in Liberia.
Not only in Afghanistan.
Everywhere. In Saakashvili.
Why are you going on, why are you only focusing abroad?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you mean to say there are plenty of American university graduates here running the state. That is what you're trying to say. Okay.
That is what you are saying.
The New York Times recently said that anyone who's expecting Hamid Karzai to sign himself off and go into the limelight, off the limelight, into the dark, into retirement, is mistaken. He is going to be around. Is that, how do you?
Well, he's going to be physically there because his residence is going to be within the compound of the, the presidential palace.
Yes.
So he's going to cast a shadow. But I don't know how influential he's going to be in future developments. But in all this debate, I mean, you think that can there be lasting peace in Afghanistan if the Taliban is not engaged seriously? I mean, once the American forces leave, the Taliban is going to launch its offensive. Then
Taliban is going to launch its offensive. That is doomsday scenario